Hello friends, in the series which we are doing on the making of contemporary India from 1950 to 1990s, in the second part on the public sphere media, we will talk about, as we did in the first part, we talked about the print media and the importance of the print media, how newspapers, books and other print media, they have played an important role in terms of dissemination of the information. We also talked about the role of the folk medium in terms of the folk art, theatre and other forms of regional arts like Nautanki, Yakshigan, etc. And how the traditional media, they have also played an important role in terms of not only providing entertainment but at the same time in terms of providing information and becoming a major tool of communication with the masses, and how they have also played an important role in terms of providing information on some of the very relevant social issues, whether in terms of the communal harmony or a removal of certain dreaded diseases, for example malaria, polio, etc. And in that context you can refer certain readings: Keval J. Kumar, Mass Communication in India; Uma Joshi, Textbook of Mass Communication and Media Studies; Introduction to Electronic Media, Complementary Course of BA English First Semester, Calicut University; Feroz Rangunwala, 75 Years of Indian Cinema; Manoj Sharma, आधुनिक भारत में प्रिंट मीडिया, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक मीडिया और सूचना क्रांति इन द एमए मटेरियल ऑफ उत्तराखंड ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी; मनोज शर्मा, आधुनिकता और सांस्कृतिक रूपांतरण, संस्कृति, मीडिया और उपभोग में उभरती प्रवृत्तियाँ इन देश पांडे अनिरुद्ध एडिटेड, 20वीं सदी के इतिहास में कुछ प्रमुख मुद्दे. So these are some of the readings which one can refer when one is talking about the kind of changes which have come over a period of times in terms of media. And as we were talking about the electronic media, that how electronic media was important in that context, and how electronic media, when the arrival of the films in India with Pundalik in 1912 and Raja Harishchandra in 1913 by Dada Saheb Phalke, and we also find that how TV broadcasting also became very important and very popular in 1950s, and some other developments across the world where Asa Briggs, she has pointed out when the BBC, British Broadcasting Corporation, was reorganized as a public corporation in 1926, and in Europe the presence of radio in every middle class living room became a matter of pride, and later radio sets, they were acquired by working class in huge numbers. So we find that how the various media, whether in terms of radio or television, and when they were initiated in the initial times, they were with the rich people, and over a period of time radio and television, they became so common that they could be found in every home, and because they were mass produced, their prices, they came down, and both the radio as well as the television, both of them they were in a way acquired by every household. And this kind of a thing could be seen even now, where you will find that the television is there in every home, and rather the phenomena is such that you will find a television rather in every room. And the coming of the DTH, the direct to home, the satellite television, where you will find that 24/7 you have this kind of a thing which is available in terms of entertainment as well as information. And we find that during the colonial period, radio services, they were facilitated in India, and All India Radio, it was officially known since 1956 as Akashvani, is the national public broadcaster of India. And we find in the context of India that India was under the colonial rule for nearly 2 centuries, and because of which a lot of poverty was there in India, and Indians, they were not in a position to purchase the radio sets. But over a period of time, we find that when the radio services, they gained momentum, and radio sets comparatively, they also became cheaper when they were being mass produced, and the income of the people also increased, so they were in a way able to afford the radios. And Apart from the news bulletins, we find that how some programs on radio became quite popular, like the Binaka Geet Mala, a film song based show which was aired by Radio Ceylon and which was hosted by Amin Sayani. So we find that these kinds of developments which happened during this time, and in the context of the radios and in the context of cinema, we find that how on 7th July 1896 at Watson Hotel in Bombay, Maurice Sestier, who was an agent of Lumiere Brothers, Auguste and Louis, who were the founders of the cinematograph, they held the first screening of the motion pictures, and Times of India referred to it as the marvel of the century. And we find that cinema definitely proved to be a marvel of the century, and it not only became a source of entertainment but also a source of information, education as well as communication. And the way the kind of audio-visual element which is there in cinema, the way it differentiates it from the other mediums of communication. And we find that the traditional mediums of communication, they lacked these aspects of the moving images which were able to enthrall the audience across the world. One of the other important aspect was the heritage of song and dance which could be seen in the Indian films, and it was a chief characteristic. And we find that how in most of the Hindi films or the regional cinema as well, you will find that 4 to 5 minimum songs they are there. And it is also on record that one of the Hindi films called In the Sabha had 72 songs. So how song and dance are part of our cultural heritage, and we will have songs for every occasion. We will have songs for marriage, we will have songs for birth, death, and all sorts of activities which are happening in one's life in terms of the events, of the important events of one's life. They are covered with various kinds of songs. So songs cannot be in a way delinked from the kind of cinema which was being made in India. And we also see that more and more application of technology in the recent times, where we find that the film viewing experience has come to our tablet shaped mobile phones, where one is many a times not going to the cinema halls, and the coming of the various OTT platforms and the coming of the various channels which are available on the mobile of an individual. So they are viewing films on the mobiles, and the theater going experience or the cinema going experience declined because of this. And but it can also be seen in that context that the various OTT platforms which are available, and many times films, they are not even being released in the theaters, rather they are being released on the OTT platform. So this has also in a way provided an opportunity to the people to watch those films who do not have the kind of time to go and watch films in a theater or a cinema hall. And we also find that how the impact of films is in the context of the promotion of the fashions, lifestyle and culture as well. And the cinema in a way reflects the socio-economic, political and cultural realities of a society. So in this context, the social importance of the culture as well as the issue of identity in the modern world, both of them are very, very important, and how they have opened new vistas for the study of cinema. So we find that the way cinema has tried to engage with the audience, the way cinema has tried to provide some kind of a meaning to the audience through the various kinds of communications, that how cinema has been seen also as a mirror of the society. The kind of themes which are being shown in the films, they are also being taken from the society, and many times we find that that the films which many of the films which are based on the everyday life, or they have been taken from the events which have happened in the real life. So in that context, the films, they are also a cultural agent of change. that how they are trying to bring more and more changes in the society, or whatever is happening in the society, it is being reflected in the cinema. And when that is being viewed by so many people at the same time, so they may also change their mindsets in certain way. And we also see that how films, they are the promoters of fashions as well as the attitudes, that how people, when they watch films, they also see the various kinds of fashion trends in the cinema, and those fashion trends, they are being accepted by the masses, and in a way more and more people in a way not only accept them but also in a way start using those kinds of fashion trends. We also find that in the 20th century, the arrival of the cable television, especially in India, it came in 1990s, and the DTH, direct to home, and the widespread viewing of the compact disc CDs, DVDs, and the arrival of the pen drives, mobiles, tablets, and the online viewing of the films, it has increased the reach of the film among the masses. And it is very, very important in this context to study films as a medium of cultural communication. And when we tend to understand them in a way that they are trying to communicate the culture in a way, then some scholars, they have tried to understand, they have tried to communicate what actually culture is. And Kishore Walicha says that the key to cinema lies in culture, and how culture is of much debate among historians and the anthropologists. E.B. Tyler says that complex whole, which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, customs, and any other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. So we see that scholars, they are in a way debating on the term culture, that what actually the culture is. And scholars, they have tried to see the culture in that sense, that it will include the various the way we live our life. For example, Tyler talks about the knowledge, belief systems, art, law, morals, customs, and any other capabilities and habits which are acquired by men as a member of society. So in that way, Raymond Williams has talked about culture as a way of life, and the way of life will include all these aspects as well. And we also find that scholars like Malinowski, they say that the culture comprises inherited artifices, commodities, ideas, values, habits, and technical process. Culture has a material content, a body of knowledge, and social organization. So in that sense, we find that culture is not a static kind of a thing, but it is dynamic in nature, because over a period of time, culture also changes. We just cannot live in a static society, and we also do not live in a static cultural space. We find that our cultural practices, they change over a period of time. They change sometimes within our lifetime as well, and sometimes they take some more time, but they are dynamic in nature. They cannot be static at all. And we also see that the various codes or the symbols and the conventions which are used in the cinematic medium, they are also culture specific as well. And some other scholars like Barno and Krishnaswamy, they say that in India, films borrow from the epics Ramayana and Mahabharata and myths and other tales. Ramayana and Mahabharata are like Iliad and Odyssey. Each is also a compendium of folk history, poetry, and wisdom. So we see that film scholars like Krishnaswamy and Barno, they talk about Ramayana and Mahabharata, that how cinema is in a way also borrowing from these epics and other myths as well as the tales, and how they provide a lot of information about our folk history, our poetry, and our wisdom. So in that sense, not only in the context of understanding cinema in the context of culture, but at the same time that how people from one's own region, they are going to other areas, and when they are living in those areas, they become the people of the diaspora, and how these people, they are also concerned with their own cultural traits. And Tejaswari Niranjana talks about this, and she says that category Indian may no longer be restricted to national boundaries, and categories of Indian audience may be seen as a category used to describe audience formations in parts of both West and Third World, wherever possible, wherever people, whether ancestrally of Indian origin or not, watch Indian cinema. So we find that how cinema has transgressed the national boundaries, and how people, those Indians, those who are not living in India but they are living in other parts of the world, and how these people they are longing to watch their own films, and they are part of that diaspora. And many a times we also find that people, those who are not Indians, but they also like the Indian films or Indian cinema, and they become avid followers of the Indian films. And Tejaswini Ranjana has talked about the people of the diasporas, and at the same time the people, those who are able to understand and watch Indian films. And we also find that in today's world it has become more relevant because of the kind of developments in the communications technology and the rising tide of globalization, and the kind of boundaries which were there earlier, they are shrinking at a much faster pace in today's world. In terms of TV, we say, or television, sometimes it is also referred to as the idiot box, as it is for the passive viewing, and it is the source of everyday entertainment. Television's reach is also quite extensive. One can find a TV set in almost all homes. So if you see the earlier times when only Doordarshan as a channel was available to the Indians, and thereafter some of the metro channels, they were started by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, and but these metro channels, they were only available in the metro cities, and it was also not 24/7 in the initial times, when we find that only selective programming was there, and the programming was only there for a certain period of time. And the viewing of films, it became quite popular during the election times, when people were glued to the television sets, as so many films they were being shown when the results of the elections, they were being announced. But thereafter we find that over a period of time, the programming of the television, it changed a lot. And initially when the programming was concerning Krishi Darshan, which was based on agriculture, and there was also another popular program in as late as early 90s or late 80s, Chitrahar, which was based on the film songs. And as I was telling you that how songs are an integral part of Indian films, so a program which was based on songs with the name of Chitrahar became quite popular on Indian television, and it was being watched quite extensively by the people. And we also find in the late 80s and early 90s the coming of the two television serials, Ramayana and Mahabharat. They created a lot of viewership of the television at that point of time, and we find that the streets, they were completely vacant. Nobody was strolling on the streets, and most of the people, they were glued to the television sets in terms of watching Ramayana and Mahabharat. And thereafter the government initiated the metro channels, which were catering to the metro cities, and where you find that more and more entertainment programs, they were being initiated on these channels. And then we find that the coming of the cable and the DTH, it revolutionized the Indian television, and where you will find that this proliferation of technology extended the visibility of the dish antennas in every nook and corner of our country. And it became easier as well, because wherever cable TV could not reach, DTH could easily reach, it was operating through a direct satellite. So we find that because of this kind of availability, we find that different channels of different genres like mythological, sport, entertainment, film, news, fashion, cartoon, lifestyle, music, adventure, history, wildlife, all these kinds of things and many more in terms of providing entertainment to the people, and at the same time rich diversity of programs they were available to the audience, and they could select what they wanted to see. And thereafter we find that this HD high definition quality which came, which was providing a very good kind of an experience. And we also find that variety in the programs led to a lot of competition among the different channels, that how channels they were trying to compete with each other, they were trying to outdo each other in terms of getting more and more TRPs, which are the television rating points, which in a way convey the popularity and the mass viewing of a program. And we also see one important aspect was that how television was able to provide jobs to so many people, those who could get employment in the television sector. And we also find that television also created a set of actors and actresses, those who were in a way behaving like the film stars, and they modeled themselves on such film stars. And we also find that how the TV industry also modeled itself on the film industry, where it organized the award shows on the lines of the film industry, where TV shows and their makers are competing against each other. And we also find that how some of the film stars of the earlier times, they also became part of the television industry, and many of the discards of the television film industry, they also came to the television industry. And how film stars, they regularly visited the TV production houses for promotion of their films, as some of the programs are widely watched by the audience. And this is how we have seen that film was promoted on certain programs which were being telecasted on the television. And how some of the film stars, they have also become part of the various shows on television, where they are in a way being used as judges to participate in the various reality shows, which are either based on song or dances or any other reality shows which are concerned with any hidden talent of the masses, which are there in terms of plenty of shows which are there on various channels. And we also see that some of the film stars, when they joined television, and how the kind of stigma which was attached to television, it also got removed. And when Amitabh Bachchan, for example, he became part of a very big show called Kaun Banega Karodpati, and it not only revolutionized the fortunes of Amitabh Bachchan himself, but at the same time it revolutionized the TV industry as well. And that program is still very, very popular, and it is being shown every year. And that how a big film star, which is being shown on a daily basis on a television channel, this became some kind of a norm in the later times, where not only he but other film stars like Shah Rukh and Salman and others as well, they also became a part of other television shows. And despite being that they were working in the films as well. So television industry also gained from their experience in that sense, and these people, they also became rich in that sense by coming to the film industry and providing their own expertise and knowledge in terms of the production and exhibition of the moving images. Then we also find that how TV in a way was providing an outlet to the retired film personalities, those who were no longer active in the films. Now they came to the field of television. And we also find that the increased TRPs because of the film actors, not only in the quiz show, but in the later times we find that how it opened the gates for a lot more film stars to the TV world. And we also see that another important aspect which is associated with TV is the acute commercialization of this medium. And it is not only evident in the entertainment programs, but also news channels, where one can find plenty of advertisements in the breaks, and also showing of advertisements on strip below even when news bulletins are telecasted. So we find that how commercialization is in a way associated with the television industry, and programs not only during the breaks show the advertisements, but at the same times the news channels, they are showing the advertisements even when the news is being telecasted, and how televisions, they are competing for TRPs so that they can augment their revenues through the advertisements as well. In that context, another important thing which is associated with television is cricket in India, that how cricket and cinema, both of them, they are considered to be two important ways in which people, they can get entertained, and how many people they want to follow them, and how cricket is considered to be a religion and it has a lot of viewership. So we find that this issue of the linking of cricket and cinema, where one day cricket became quite popular in 1970s, and IPL later we find that how a lot of revenue is being generated for the broadcasters through the IPL, and the players, they are getting astronomical prizes for being purchased for certain teams. So TV has become some sort of a vehicle for the propagation and popularity of such a sport in India, and certain films, they are also being made. For example, Mahendra Singh Dhoni, Sachin Tendulkar, 83. So all of them, they are not only showing old films, but there are also a lot of recent films. They are quite exhibited quite frequently on the television, and the window time of film release and its exhibition on TV has also reduced considerably, and many a times it has come down to a month. So how the TV has shrunk the various regions and brought the global integration, and in a way we also see that how Gulf War in 1990s was shown on the television. So this way we find that TV has brought a lot of changes in that context, and rest of the issues which are concerned with the media, this we will discuss in our next lecture. Thank you very much.